Good evening and welcome to Game Dev Coaching Office Hours. I'm Keith and we're answering questions about people problems. All right, starting us off with a few from the mailbag. What do you mean, this is in quotes, what do you mean least table flippy person in the room? All right, so this goes back, 5 or 6 years ago at this point. And to my knowledge, I coined this to myself. I don't think I got this from somebody else, but it's just stuck with me ever since, and I keep using it here and there. I was at a client's office in a meeting with a bunch of folks, kind of a production meeting, and things were not going overly well for the project. And we had the publishing office basically in the States, and we had a developer in Germany that was doing one project, and then we had another outsourced development team in the States elsewhere that was doing a second project. So I came out of one production meeting where things had not been going overly well for the producer in this meeting. And as soon as we get out of the meeting, we step into the hall, and he gets bushwhacked, for lack of a better term. He was ambushed by an AP, by an associate producer. And the AP says something like, hey, we talked to the outsourcers, and they really can't do this, this, and this for the next milestone. And the response that the producer gave, who was already not in a great mood, right? The response that he gave was a little, we'll just say terse in responding to the AP, and kind of sent the guy packing with his tail between his legs, which I'm pretty sure was not really the intent, but in the moment, the producer's just frustrated and he kind of lashed out a bit. Okay, so I'm standing right there next to him when this happens. We had a one-on-one that day or later on the week, and I was recounting this tale to him. And he said, yeah, I realized that I didn't respond overly well. I was already in this really emotionally charged state because this other stuff was going wrong. And then he just hit me at the wrong time with the worst news. And I said, yeah, I get it. And I can't tell you to not feel things, because the study of emotional intelligence shows that, hey, the human brain generates emotions. And that's just a thing that you have to be able to cope with. So I said, yeah, I'm not telling you don't feel things. I am telling you that as the lead producer here, you need to be the least table flippy person in the room. And that's sort of, I guess that was my take on, you need to be the calmest voice in the room, or whatever the traditional saying is when you're a leader. This is the thing, is that you don't get to lash out. You may absolutely be angry or frustrated or disappointed, whatever, but you don't get to act angry or frustrated or disappointed. So, least table flippy person in the room is basically saying everybody needs a level of emotional intelligence. This is how you collaborate, how well you communicate, how well you listen, these kinds of things, and especially leaders. So the skills of emotional intelligence are particularly important for leaders. Self-awareness, self-management, these kinds of things. And what that message particularly entailed at this point was, you kind of lashed out there. You need to not do that. There are higher expectations for you. So it was sort of a way to condense a bit of feedback around emotional intelligence. So least table flippy person in the room means kind of what it sounds like. Like, you don't get to lash out. You don't get to act out your emotional swings in the presence of others. You get to have emotions because you can't really stop them. That's the way the human brain works. That's what the study of neurology has shown us. Your brain generates emotions. But you need to be in control of them because, hey, guess what? You're the leader. So, least table flippy person in the room. There we go. Well, that was an easy one. The next two are not as easy. Let's see here. Whew. All right, so for some background, What I have said for years and years is, in the realm of feedback, any type of feedback that you get in a professional setting, I subscribe in general to the 3 tiers of feedback that Ken Blanchard laid out in the 1 Minute Manager, which is a decades old book at this point, but I think it still holds water. So the 3 tiers of feedback, from least formal to most formal, are daily coaching, which happens within 24 hours of any given event, positive or negative, hopefully face to face, but at the very least one-on-one, right? So over Slack or whatever, if you're not in the same room. You as the manager will say something to the team member. Hey, that was a great presentation you gave. I love that email. It was very thoughtful. Whatever. Like, this is simple, informal, within 24 hours of the event, daily coaching. Okay, so that's the least formal. The next most formal, one-on-ones. And the most formal form of feedback of the 3 tiers are the performance reviews. Okay, whenever you do those, hopefully not the monolithic once a year kind of job, but performance reviews are the most formal. Okay, but that middle ground there, the one-on-ones, what I have told people for years is, listen, this is where the heavy lifting, the majority of feedback you ever deliver to anyone on your team needs to come in. These need to be regular, they need to be frequent, all these sorts of things. I talk about one-on-ones in depth. This question says, what if my relationship with my boss has degraded so much I don't feel safe having one-on-ones with them anymore? All right, so clearly, having just laid out how important one-on-ones are, if someone is saying they don't feel safe having one, that's a problem. Now, in this scenario, it's just my relationship with my boss has degraded. Now, I don't know what the context is. I don't know who has done what. Maybe that's because you're a terrible person and your boss is an angel and you're the one at fault. I don't know. But I'm also a believer that it's never 100% on just one person. So everybody, like there's more than one person that contributes to every scenario. Maybe just a teensy bit. Maybe it's 50-50. I don't know. But if the relationship with the boss has degraded, I feel as though it's likely that both parties have had a noteworthy part to play here. Okay, but however we got to it, we're in a situation where a team member and their manager have a crummy relationship at this point, and it's so bad the team member doesn't feel safe having a one-on-one with their boss. What do you do? I would say you as the team member still deserve the level of support that you get from having someone involved in your work with whom you can converse at a deeper level, with whom you can build rapport, somebody who can also give you feedback if there's something that you need to hear, someone who can share business information with you, if there's stuff that's being disseminated from the CEO or the studio head or whatever. So as a team member, you just deserve all of these things. Hopefully somebody who is checking up with you on your development goals, somebody you can talk to about interpersonal problems. I'm having trouble talking with Biff over here. How am I going to resolve that? You, as a team member, deserve the level of support that having somebody in that one-on-one type relationship with you provides. Okay. Hopefully, that is your direct manager. Now, saying direct manager can mean a few different things. When I was last a full-time W-2 employee, game developer at Raven Software years ago, the management structure of the studio was what we call, in kind of people management space, we call that a very functional structure. And by that I mean, if you are an engineer, you're a programmer, you have a boss, that's the lead programmer. And anything that you need, if it's task related, it's project related, if it's people related, if it's growth related, development goals, anything, your lead programmer is going to deliver that. If you switch to a new project, so you now have a new lead programmer, that person is now going to deliver all of that for you. So it's functional in that it's all based on the project you're on, the work you're doing. You have a boss associated with that line of authority there on that project, and that boss is providing everything for you, be it task or people related. Okay, so that's very functional. We also have this concept of a matrixed structure. And by that I mean, so before we had like one boss. Okay, so it goes from the CEO to the studio lead to the department lead to you, whatever. So it's that has very much to do with the project you're on. Okay, but you have just one boss, lead programmer. In a matrix structure, you have the person who is your boss pertinent to the project. Okay, so I'm on project X. Whoever is assigning me tasks or everything project related, that's my boss on this axis, we'll say. And then we have this axis, which is all the people stuff. So you may have a lead programmer who's giving you tasks, okay? And then you have, they typically are called something like a group manager, an engineering group manager. So regardless of which project somebody might be on in the company, if they're 2, 3, 5 projects, all of the engineers have a group manager, an engineering group manager. And for career stuff, for professional development stuff, that group manager is delivering that support. So this is a kind of a matrix. You have one axis and then another axis. You kind of sort of have two bosses in that scenario. One is doing very task, very project related stuff. And the other one is doing career and people related stuff. Okay. So in that setting, and this is typically in larger companies, like you won't find this in 10-person studio, right? But if it's 500 people, this starts to make sense because it's asking a lot of one lead programmer to be on top of all of the technical stuff, all of the project related stuff, all of the skills, functional expertise, and all of the people stuff, be good at helping somebody with development goals and interpersonal issues and all of that. Like that's a lot to ask. And not all that many people come into game dev going, wow, I hope I get saddled with all of this. That's not typically the case. You're asking a lot of one person. So I've worked with multiple clients and have seen this elsewhere in the industry where this sort of matrix structure is pursued because it's a rarer skill set to have someone who's interested in the people stuff and the development stuff. But in that scenario, if this is a matrix structure, you kind of have two bosses. So maybe the one boss, maybe your project related boss is the one where you have this degraded relationship, but you can still talk to the engineering group manager. Okay, so maybe, or vice versa. Like regardless, like one of these two people, hopefully, you still have a decent relationship with. So if you feel like, I'm really not getting anything out of having one-on-ones with this person, now talk with the group manager or whoever the second boss is basically and say, I could really use your help. This relationship over here has really fallen apart because of X, Y, or Z, whatever. And I would like you and I to be having one-on-ones. Is that a thing we could do? Okay, so that's maybe step one is we look at, if you're in a matrix structure, is there another person who can be at that level of support for you and with whom you can have one-on-ones? Okay, so that's maybe a thing that could happen. Another possibility is you can, if you have somebody in an HR capacity or people operations capacity, you go to them and you say, listen, I'm having a lot of trouble with my boss over here. I know we're supposed to be having one-on-ones, but listen, our relationship is super strained because of whatever thing has happened. And I don't even feel safe on whatever level, emotional or mental. Hopefully you don't feel physically unsafe with them. But regardless, I don't feel safe talking with them and I still want to have one-on-ones with somebody. Hey, HR person, can you fill that role for me? Right. So maybe there's another possibility there. Whoever your boss is, if that is a lead programmer, they have a boss, right? So maybe, I don't know, a technical lead or an architect or they report straight to the project lead. I don't know. or straight to the CEO. But regardless, they have a boss. Ideally, you wouldn't be kind of skipping the level and going up to your boss's boss, but it's just something to consider as an alternative. Maybe that's something that would work in your situation. I don't know. So there are a few different routes that possibly you could take to still have that level of support and contact with someone, even if the relationship with your boss has gotten sketchy. Now, having sort of laid out those alternatives, I would also say this. It's not a good thing for you to be on a team with somebody you don't feel safe talking to. Whatever unsafe means. There will always be people that you like more or less. There will be people with whom you get along better or worse. But hopefully there isn't anybody on the team that you just straight up don't feel safe having conversations with them. Especially if that's the person you, at least on paper, you report to, and who is probably responsible for your performance reviews and compensation adjustments and promotion opportunities. So even if you take one of these alternatives I suggested, you find somebody else with whom to have one-on-ones, I would still contend that solving whatever straining your relationship with your boss, I think is important. It's not going to be healthy in the long term for you to just kind of be avoiding your boss for some odd reason. That's a thing that you need to get sorted. And if it's an absolutely intractable, irreconcilable interpersonal problem you have with them, is there another project you can get moved to? Right? Something like that. Or what alternatives do you have? If you just can't fix the relationship, is there some place I can go elsewhere in the company to be away from this person? Maybe that's a thing. I don't know. But being on the project with someone who on paper is your boss and you don't feel safe talking to them, that needs some sort of resolution. That's not long-term tenable. So that wasn't strictly the question. I mean, this question is really kind of about one-on-ones. But I would say we have some options for getting you one-on-ones, getting you the support you deserve. And we need to figure out some way to address the relationship with the boss. Now, something I have seen folks do in the past is kind of have, this is going to sound bad, kind of have two-on-ones. So if you have an HR person, can they sit in on what's supposed to be a one-on-one, just you and your boss, right? But can the HR person join the call, basically? That's not a long-term solution. Again, you need to fix the thing with your boss, I would say. But it's maybe a step towards figuring out how to get you and your boss to communicate better, to get some things in the open and get stuff resolved, find a way to see eye to eye and get past whatever's straining the relationship so that you can have this person as your supportive manager and have them deliver one-on-ones. We want to fix that. So maybe having the HR person join you for a while. Again, not a long-term solution. Like, we're not doing this the rest of your duration on the project or your tenure at the company. But maybe that's something that would help get you a few steps down the road towards solving the relationship problem with your boss. All right, so that was the question. What if my relationship with my boss has degraded so much I don't feel safe having one-on-ones with them anymore? And I probably should have prefaced the whole thing by saying this. I don't know exactly what safe means, but if it means like physically safe, like I don't trust being in a room alone with them, absolutely that has to be fixed. And that's a thing where, and I don't know all the ins and outs of this, again, not a lawyer, not giving you legal advice, but that's a thing where an HR person's job is to make sure we aren't creating a hostile work environment, a toxic work environment for you. And if we have somebody on staff who's supposedly a manager that is making someone feel physically unsafe, that's something that an HR person should want fixed right now. Because that's, I mean, technically you are rapidly getting into lawsuit territory. If we don't address the fact that this person makes me feel physically unsafe and they remain my boss, that's a hostile work environment. And that's a thing that could get people sued. So an HR person should definitely want that fixed. So if it's a physical safety issue, don't even play around with that. You need to go to somebody in authority and get that sorted like right now. Okay, that was an intriguingly deep question. All right, let's look at our third question here. I feel like the goalposts keep moving. I'm never sure for long what it means to do a good job. What do I do? Oh boy. Okay, I'll read that again. I feel like the goalposts keep moving. I'm never sure for long what it means to do a good job. What do I do? Okay, so software development in general, games even more so, is chaotic and complex. We are trying to solve for something that is incredibly difficult to measure. We're trying to do it in a technologically complicated environment, and we're trying to do it typically with fewer resources and less time, less money, fewer people than we really need to solve the problem. Okay, so it's a difficult and fluid environment. Lots of stuff changes. We can expect that. But the impression I get here is that as an employee, not like I'm not sure what it means to be successful on this sprint or for this milestone or whatever. The impression I get from this question is as a team member, as an employee, as a junior animator, as a senior VFX artist, whatever, I'm not sure what it means to do a good job. Because I feel like the goalposts keep moving. Okay, so that's kind of a different story from us trying to find the fun, sprint to sprint, or whatever. Even though the nature of the project changes, like we might pivot from first person to third person at some point. We might pivot from tactical shooter to action RPG. I don't know. So those sorts of things happen, but you should still know what it means to be successful in your role in the company. So basically I'm talking about your title, right? The junior animator, senior VFX artist, whatever it is. What I have told clients for years is this: before you hire someone, before you put that job posting out online, here are the things that you owe yourselves and whoever the candidates are that might apply to this job. You owe them a business problem that this role is solving. And I would say, I mean, to a job candidate, we need an animator is kind of that. We need someone to make animation. But internally, we need to have a better sense of what the business need is that we're solving. We need somebody to clean mocap. We need somebody to is it hard surface related animation? Are you like animating tank treads or something, or are you animating an octopus? Like, what are the sorts of things? We need somebody to churn out a ton of work for us to hit alpha. We need somebody who can do the highest quality stuff for if it's promotional renders or if it's for cutscenes or whatever. What's the business need that we're trying to solve with this role? Okay, so that's item one. And then you also owe a handful of bullet points. What are the measures of success for this role? How can this person, like not their boss, how can this person know that they're being successful? These are things that, even if it's just one or two things, these are measures of success that we owe the job candidate who's going to apply. All right, so before we put some sort of job posting online, these are things we should know about the role. What's the business need we're solving for? What are the measures of success? So this person knows that they're being successful. So if we've done that, then we at least have those that we can point to before someone even applies for the job, much less after we hire them and after they're months into the role and they feel like the goalposts are moving. We at least have those measures of success. Now, a lot of places don't get that far. A lot of places just get as far as, yeah, we're hiring an animator. They got to be talented and passionate. And then they got to have 87 bullet points of requirements. And they got to be able to work for peanuts. Okay, so that's usually, like, look at any job posting ever. Can you scale from 1 to 5? This is a thing that I do. I have a rubric for scoring job postings. On a scale from 1 to 5, how many points would you give this job posting for clearly defined measures of success? It's surprisingly difficult to find a decent job posting that does that. So many places don't do this. All right, well, let's then assume that our company is as dysfunctional as the majority of the industry and did not, in fact, put together meaningful, concrete measures of success for this role. We hired somebody anyway, and they've been here for months, maybe years, I don't know. And they now feel like whatever measures of success exist, they're pretty fluid. And I can't point to them, and I'm never sure for long what it means to do a good job. Okay. It is an absolutely reasonable thing for any team member to say that to their boss. I got to tell you, I don't honestly know. I don't have a lot of clarity around what it means for me to be successful in my job. Like, tasks keep coming my way, but sometimes the nature of them changes. Sometimes the priority of them changes. Sometimes they come from this person or from that person. And I don't necessarily know which ones are more important than others. It seems as though even maybe the quality level requirements are different. And maybe I'm supposed to not listen to this person over here when they want me to do work, but no one told me not to listen to that. Like, there could be all these questions involved in the nature of the stuff that I do. And apparently I'm also not getting meaningful feedback, even if the measures of success are unclear, they are not concrete. I should still be getting feedback from my boss in our one-on-ones that lets me know what kind of job I'm doing. Am I at least on target? Or am I noticeably above or below? And apparently you're not even getting that. So you don't know measures of success. You aren't getting feedback on the quality of your work. These are things that every team member, in an ideal world, were I running the show, these are things that every team member in the company could absolutely expect their boss to deliver. And you can politely, professionally approach your boss at any point in time and tell them, I don't have this, I don't have this. So you should always be able to ask your boss, what are measures of success for my role? I would like to have more frequent feedback other than our once a year performance review telling me how good a job I'm doing. If your manager feels like that is an onerous burden, they shouldn't be a people leader. Now that's, again, in a perfect world, but that should absolutely be part of the job. That should have been explained to them before they took the lead role, the manager role. So those are things that you can absolutely expect. And maybe that's not common at your studio. Maybe these are not things that are instilled in managers. I don't know. But even if they aren't common, So you can't necessarily point to the onboarding that told you these are things you can expect of your manager. Maybe you can't point to documentation or an employee handbook. You don't really have anything to stand on that says, hey, I was told that I can get these. It is still reasonable for you to go to your boss and say, I'm having difficulty understanding how to perform my job well because I don't have clear measures of success. And if you don't have those, boss, we can work together to figure out what those are. But it's absolutely something that I am finding greater and greater need for in my role here. So maybe your boss is completely surprised to have somebody make this request, and they do not have the resources to even figure out, what do I tell this animator about measures of success? Maybe none of that is true in your company. Maybe the dysfunction runs a little rampant. Then be prepared to say, I'm happy to collaborate with you on these. And, or if we need to bring in like HR or whatever else, I'm prepared to do some legwork here, but it's important enough to me to know what it means to be successful that I'm willing to do the work to figure this out with you. So you're offering to do some of the work. You're offering to collaborate with the boss. Let's come up with these. They're really important to me. And you can absolutely ask your boss, and it would be really helpful for me, even if it's just once a month, if we could sit down for a couple minutes and you could tell me what kind of a job I'm doing. Because I don't feel as though I'm getting that measure of feedback right now. So can we figure out a better method for delivering that feedback so I can know that I'm doing a good job? That's totally a thing that you can ask your boss for. So the original question here was, you feel like the goalposts keep moving, and there are a few different ways to interpret that. Not entirely sure what we mean. So maybe that's a quality bar. Maybe that's quantity. Like you're not churning out enough animations a week. I don't know. Or you're not sure who you're supposed to be listening to because requests come from different angles. So like feeling like the goalposts keep moving could mean a lot of things. Some of it is inherent to the nature of game development, but you are, even if that's true, so like even if stuff is changing all over the show, it is still incumbent upon your boss to look at that landscape and go, okay, but that means that Keith is going to need a little bit more insight from me on what it means to be successful in his job now, because this and that changed. So that's what an involved, properly equipped manager should be prepared to do. And chances are that if your manager is not properly equipped in that way, that's probably a systemic thing at the company. And so maybe that's an HR request. Say, is this a thing that we can fix? Because I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person that has this difficulty knowing what it means to be successful in their role, because we're just not super clear, and we don't have we don't really have any standardized methods for delivering feedback other than the once a year performance review. Are these things that we can fix kind of systemically? And that's a lot of work, right? I mean, if you're talking about we need to set up an initiative to fix our performance review system, or train everybody how to have one-on-ones or whatever, that's work. And nobody's just going to jump onto that. So, yeah, I'll skip lunch today and I'll just take care of that for you, Keith. No, that's a lot of effort. And I think that's table stakes for a healthy company. Like if you aren't doing at least those things, I don't know how you're planning on staying in business long. Just to be an efficient company, an effective team, you need better feedback systems, and people need to know what it means to be successful. Like it's another thing to actually know how to be successful, but if I don't even know how to measure success, what are any of us doing? And I don't get feedback about whether I'm being successful or not, no good can come of that. So that's stuff that any given company should get sorted out. if they don't have those systems in place. And if I'm a manager and a team member comes to me and says something like this, man, I feel like the goalposts keep moving, then what if I think I'm doing a good job of delivering feedback? What if I think, man, I'm having one-on-ones with Keith, like an hour every second Friday, we sit down and talk, and I know that in at least half of our one-on-ones, I'm giving him feedback on his job. So like if the manager's sitting there going through this and thinking, well, I believe I am delivering feedback. I believe that I'm giving clarity around what it means to be successful for Keith in his role, then we need to have some sort of conversation about, okay, well, here's what I'm providing for you now as your manager. Are you telling me that's not enough clarity? Are you telling me you aren't getting feedback often enough? Are you just not recognizing when I'm giving you feedback? Because sometimes people don't necessarily realize that, or they're bad at accepting compliments or whatever. Somehow the manager's efforts aren't landing there. And so maybe there's some things we need to adjust. Like the manager's going, I thought I was doing a good job at this. Well, so the thing is, the only true judge of the quality of a leader doesn't come from certifications or title or a process that you follow. What matters are results. The only true judge of the quality of a leader comes from the perspective of those being led. And so if the people you are leading as a manager are telling you, I don't know what it means to be successful, I'm not getting enough feedback on my work, then you need to consider changing that for them. Now, I will also say there are some people who just always want more, or for some odd reason, they just seem to be too dense for things to land with them. There's only so much adjusting of your processes and giving of your time that you can do as a manager. Like you can't decide that, oh, well, then I'm just going to spend 20 extra hours a week, giving Keith whatever feedback he needs and just sitting next to him and holding his hand and telling him attaboy every time he moves the mouse. Like that's not reasonable. So there's a cutoff, right? There's a point at which a manager has to say, so here's the deal. I know that I have doubled my efforts to give you feedback. And if you feel as though you are still not receiving that from me, I gotta tell you, there's nothing we can reasonably do at this company to give you more feedback. So we need to change something on your end. That may happen. So I'm not saying the manager just needs to come up with infinite supplies of patience and rearrange their schedule for any given team member. Like there are limits, okay? But in general, a manager should go, all right, well, maybe I own part of the contribution here and I need to fix some things. All right, so the question was, I feel like the goalposts keep moving. I'm never sure for long what it means to do a good job. What do I do? Well, approach your manager. What are the measures of success for my job? Can I get feedback more often or in a different format somehow so that I know if I'm above target or below target? And if my manager is caught off guard by that and has never been told that's part of their job and they're ill-equipped to provide any sort of feedback, or they're going, man, I don't know what the measures of success are for a junior animator. What do I tell this person? Then maybe that's a thing where you talk to your manager and say, hey, and if this all is hitting you out of left field, then maybe we can go to HR and they either have something documented or they can help us come up with something. Because I can tell you I would be able to do a much better job if I knew how to be effective. And I feel like if I'm feeling that way, there are probably others in the company that feel that way too. So let's figure out how we can fix that systemically. So I feel like those are reasonable things that you can ask. And it is kind of dependent upon the quality of your manager at that point, whether you can have conversations like that. But that's where I would suggest starting. All right. So that's in the mailbag tonight. We had those 3 questions. They're pretty good ones. Love talking about not being table flippy. And we wound up bringing up one-on-ones in 2/3 of the questions tonight, which, kind of drives home exactly how I feel about the importance of one-on-ones. You should have them. They should be regular and frequent. I have lots to say about one-on-ones. Topic for a different time. All right. Thanks for joining us tonight, and hopefully we'll catch you again next week. Feel free to submit some questions. We've got the chat here on Twitch where you can submit them if you want, or via the anonymous Google survey that I send a link out to that. That's probably in my Twitch page, and when I make announcements on LinkedIn about doing these office hours, the link is there too. So feel free to submit questions. Happy to answer them, and we'll catch everybody again next time.